I'm Daniel.
I'm Jay-Z.
And this is Just My DIY.
You know, ever since we got engaged, we have been so excited about all the different wedding DIYs we can do, starting with how to make a wax seal stamp.
Now, wax seal stamps don't necessarily need to be only for weddings, but you can use them for any holiday or celebration.
Thank you notes, whatever. So we're going to show you today how to do a wax seal stamp 4 different ways, ranging from totally low-tech to high-tech with the Glowforge.
Of course, no matter which road you choose, it's sure to gain your seal of approval.
Let's get started. So we're going to start with some pretty paper wax seals. Now, of course, we're just going to grab some scrapbook paper and a circle punch if you have one. If not, these are super cheap. I love the circle punch because you can see exactly what you're cutting out, but unfortunately ours is a little big for this method, so we did go over to the Cricut to cut out the circles. Just know that the Cricut is not required.
We're cutting these out to about 3/4 of an inch. That way we'll be able to press it into our wax and it will look reasonable.
So now we do need something to press it with, which is why we're going to go to Easy Mold. You will see us use this a lot throughout this video because it's such a great tool to have.
This is quite easy to mix 2 equal parts, massage them together, and when they form a uniform color, you mold it to the shape you want. You have about 3 minutes working time.
Yeah, it is a really quick working time, but what we're doing is we are putting it inside one of those cosmetic little containers you use for travel, and that's giving us a nice flat-ish bottom and smooth circle on the mini candlestick. And now you can see we did have a little bubble, but it's fine because we're pressing on top of paper. So we're going to pour some wax on the back of an envelope, lay the paper down, and
press with a seal of approval.
For all of these, you want to make sure to let the wax cool before you pull it up, and once you do, look at how pretty that is, and all you did was cut out a circle of printed paper.
Now, these are highly customizable. You can print anything out on them that you need to, or leave them blank with these cute floral patterns in the background. And I mean, no matter how you do it,
they turn out so well. I love this method.
But now we're going to move on to the silicone wax seal stamp.
And for this, we're going to turn again to the Easy Mold, our little cosmetic containers, and we are actually using letterboard letters to create the impression. Now, if yours are like this, they may have little tabs on the end after you pull them off. Make sure you have a nice clean shape to press from.
So again, we're going to mix equal parts of it. We're going to massage them together until it forms a uniform color and squeeze them into a couple more of those travel cosmetic containers.
So now one thing we do want to make sure we have is a smooth top to this. So we just grabbed a piece of plastic, cut it into a circle, and glued it to the back of a cork, which allows us to get a nice smooth surface that we're going to press those letterboard pieces into. So we did discover after we put that first one in that we wanted to cut that back tab off as well, so we could use our little pressing cork to get that flush to the surface. And so we pulled that first one out and did that again. But remember, you only have 3 minutes working time.
Now we have a 24-hour full cure time, so we go ahead and
go back to the Easy Mold because
Yay.
Now we need to attach it to the candlestick.
So the silicone is really easy to stick to silicone. There's a couple other things that can work in its place, but we already have the silicone. So we insert some in the candlestick and stick the silicone to it. Once it's cured, we trim off the one ring.
Excess squish out. And practice for the wedding.
So we're trying to match a Glowforge cutout to tell us what direction the stamp is facing.
You don't have to have a Glowforge for that. Obviously, you could glue the letterboard piece to it or just draw it on.
But again, we pour our wax down, we put our stamp on top of it, and when the wax cools, it turns to a dull shine.
And look at how cool that was with no tech.
So now we got the acrylic wax steel stamp.
So for this one, a lot of people have struggled with the acrylic on their Glowforge making a wax seal stamp, and we think there's a few key things that can make this work, or at least that worked for us. The first is making sure that you get a 3D engrave, and you do that by adding an outer glow to your image. We are here inside Photoshop, went to the layer style, or adding an outer glow. Now you will see that we're going to play with these sliders because we're trying to get the right fade off of the edges while not losing the detail in our image. So we encourage you to maybe start with where we ended, but don't be afraid to play with the sliders and find what's going to work for you. But the ultimate goal is to have a concave engrave so it's not straight up and down.
It's also important to know that for this being your stamp, your letters do need to be reversed for it to be read correctly when stamped.
So now we're going to use
the Glowforge and a 1/4 inch acrylic.
Again, everything we use will be linked down below. So we're going to drag our image into the Glowforge software. We're going to size it down to around 0.75. We do have premium, so we're just putting a circle around it to cut because all we have right there is the engraved image. So we're going to size that to about 0.85 or 9.
Whatever you want.
And then adjust it to where we want it to be. Make sure we group it, and then we're going to go into our settings. Now, for the settings, of course, it's going to be a proof grade cut on this acrylic, but the engrave, you want to click 3D engrave, and then the speed we used was 1150, full power, make sure you're on very power, and 675 for the LPI. We are doing a couple of extras because we're going to need this for the metal method that we show you in a little bit. And don't forget, of course, if you're in the market for a Glowforge, we have a referral link in the description which will give you up to $500 off your purchase.
So here's our product. We're taking the one that we're going to use for a stamp itself and Gorilla super gluing it to a candlestick. And this is the easy part. The hard part is matching the topper to it in the same alignment as to which it would be pressing.
Which is why Daniel's doing it, because he's our precision guy.
So I double check it a few times, super glue that down in place, and let her.
Now we're going to press it. Now, another key to getting the acrylic to work as a wax seal stamp is that mold release spray. Off screen, we sprayed 2 sprays onto the acrylic. Now we're going to put our wax down, and this is the last thing that's really important. Wait 10 seconds before you put that down on the wax because you want the wax to cool a little bit, and then of course cool completely before you pull it up.
And it'll turn from a bright shiny to a dull shiny. And that's when you know you can go ahead and peel it off.
Look at that detail. That's the one good thing about the acrylic is the level of detail you get.
Absolutely. But now we move on to the metal wax seal stamp. Now we're taking the same things that we had mentioned we cut out from the Glowforge and setting those up for an easy mold. I bet you couldn't guess we were going to use that. This is again mixed 2 equal parts until it's a uniform color. Remember that you have 3 minutes working time. So we are going to massage it into the acrylic itself, trying to work it into all those fancy tiny little concave 3D grooves. And once we feel like we have that successful, eventually.
I mean, you gotta be precise.
Just work it, baby, work it.
Now, we did just wrap the other part of the silicone around. You could have put this in the cosmetic jars, which we learned after this. This was actually one of the first few times we tried this, but it worked.
So we let them cure for the 30 minutes, but then we needed to accelerate the full 24-hour curing to do this slightly more quickly. So we popped out the acrylic, put it in a baking tray, and put it in the oven at 350 degrees. And it only took 30 minutes in there to mock the 24-hour full cure time. So here it is, 30 minutes later. It doesn't smell as good as cookies.
It doesn't taste like cookies, don't eat it.
Why are you tasting it? That's just weird.
I didn't.
So we let them cool, and while they're cooling, we come in here and it's time to play with solder. This is a lead-free solder, no rosin core solder. We cut off about what would be 10 to 12 inches of it, We discovered that's enough for at least one, but not necessarily two. You'll see that in a second. To allow the solder to release from the silicone molds, we actually put a graphite powder in there and then tap out the excess.
And that's to act as a lubricant. Now you'll see we're using a crucible is what that white thing's called. We put the solder in, and make sure you prepare your crucible before you use it the first time by burning it with some borax. There's other videos out there on that. Just wanted to call that out.
So we pour the metal out. You see we get that one full, but then the other one was like, eh. So we tap around the good one a little bit, wait for the other one to harden, and then remelt it and re-pour it. We're not metalworking experts.
So we ate a meal and let that cool, and then we popped them right out.
So you can see that it comes out with some nice details. It's not as nicely detailed as the acrylic was, but they actually have that.
They do really well. I mean, it's kind of like a medium level of detail is the way I think about it.
So we had to brush out the excess of the graphite powder off of the actual solder itself. We're using a JB weld to adhere that to the candlestick. So again, we're going to align it so that we can put the, what do you call this?
I'm just going to call it the topper to show the design.
And the alignment of the design. It's more important that it shows the alignment. It doesn't have to be fancy. You could take a marker or whatever.
Yeah.
But you need to know your alignment. So then we go ahead and pour our wax out onto the thing we care to seal. And put our stamp into it. And when the wax cools,
it lifts right off, which we love because you don't need that mold release. And look at that level of detail.
It does cool a little bit faster with the solder, which is a nice effect.
So now we're going to show you a few different ways that you can use wax seals. So enjoy the montage. We hope you enjoyed learning 4 different ways to make your very own wax seal stamp. And don't forget that if you're in the market for a Glowforge, we have a referral link down in the description that'll give you up to $500 off your purchase, as well as give us a little something in return.
So feel free to write out in the comment line whatever your favorite seal style was. And of course, if you like the video, you should give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, and of course know that everything that we use to make all of this is listed down in the description.
Also in the description are links to all of our social handles. Please connect with us across platforms. We love hearing from you. And don't forget to check out our blog at justmightdiy.com. Thanks for watching.